Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
No Nielson, no Hustler. Matawanek with you here, joined by Pat Gregoire and Jake Boland-Moss from Coolbet Canada. Huss and Dusty coming back from Vancouver. And Huss probably needing a little bit extra time just to lick his wounds from this rough weekend where everything was going right since September. And then in one weekend, he kind of had like the perfect storm in the worst possible way for him. Lots to get to on the show today. But Pat, Jake, how are you guys? How was your guys' weekend?
Pretty good. I think, obviously, as everyone knows, the Argos won the Grey Cup. Jake and I, huge Argos fans, lifetime Argos fans. So we're all sorts of fired up for that one. Bills won, which was huge, beat Huss. And then, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs take care of business against the Oilers. So I'm flying at an all-time high. Although my picks this weekend for my best bets, 0-3. I've got one more tonight in this Monday Nighter. So I guess Gambler, the gambling god, had to keep me a little bit humbled here because the picks weren't great. But everything else for me was fantastic this weekend.
Jake?
Yeah, not pretty from me either. I think I was 1-2. I have the other side of Patty's pick tonight, so not feeling too comfortable about the Cowboys. I know it's ugly. I do think, Houston will be a public side. It makes sense. Like, the Cowboys have been awful. I'm putting a little too much faith in Cooper Rush, if you ask me. I don't know how much of the game I'm going to get to watching, but we'll see. We'll see if I can split the week with a Cowboys cover tonight, or if Patty can get off the schneid here. We'll have to see. But, yeah, I was on the Chiefs. Patty's Bills, I'm sure we'll get into it, took care of business. And I was also on Green Bay, and we can talk about that game too. Probably one of the other big storylines from that 1:00 slate there yesterday.
Yeah, we talk NFL. We'll talk Grey Cup. We'll go recap a little bit Tyson Paul at some point. But do you guys want to do any sort of victory lap of Leafs over the Oilers? Jake, I know
yes.
You go at it with Oiler fans all the time. Do you want to do a little bit of a nice little victory lap with all the Oiler fans out there?
Yeah, no, I think we absolutely want to do a little victory lap with the Oilers fans. I don't know. I know Penner's Pancake Sauce in the Saturday night post-game chat on EST. We were doing a bit of trolling just because, we were having a little bit of fun. It's Saturday night. Yeah, hell of a swing there, Matty. Like, I don't know what the narrative was. I thought another clip of Bouchard on a back check where he's half-assing it to the puck, and Bobby McMahon is full throttle, just blows by him and gets around Skinner. Of course, I had a bad feeling when you guys pulled the goalie, and it was more than likely it was going to get tied up. So you guys tie it up, and then overtime, like, you get the Draisaitl and Draisaitl McDavid 2-on-1. Marner makes a great play. Like, Patty's not a huge Marner guy. I'm the Marner stan of the group here, but makes a great play defensively. And then the rare Marner, I'm going to do it myself, not make the pass over to Tavares. Obviously happy for us to see. It was a hell of a game, I think, all around. But I'm sure I know some other fans I saw in the chat were definitely upset with Bouchard, and definitely Skinner seemed to be the two big guys circled once again.
Yeah, it's wild. I think the Leafs have won like 18 of the last 24 meetings against the Oilers too.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I saw that stat thrown out there. It's crazy. I mean, you go back to even before the Matthews-McDavid rivalry really was, heated up, but Kadri, that big goal Kadri scored on McDavid. It's a nice cross-country rivalry even though the big bad blue and white are dominating the rivalry right now. But, this is, I'll be honest, full transparency, like a list of teams that I absolutely hate seeing the Leafs lose to. Obviously, number one, Boston. Still, the rivalry is very strong there. Florida and Tampa have now creeped up there because of some of the playoff history that's been built up. Ottawa is always there. It's the province rivalry. But Winnipeg and Edmonton are slowly creeping up on that list. And I think some great games obviously has had to do with that. I think, obviously, with Jake and I being very in tune with Edmonton Sports Talk, seeing all the Leaf slander come through. Same thing with Winnipeg. It's a no-brainer, but it's good for the league, man. Like, go back and think to that COVID season, how awesome and how much fun that Canadian division was. If there was a way to have these Canadian teams be able to play each other more, I know Sportsnet and the CBC would be a lot more happy with that. I mean, we're seeing more all Canadian matchups on Prime Hockey as well. Another one here tonight in Edmonton and in the Canadians.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of these American networks are really enjoying seeing some of the all Canadian matchups.
But this is also a Canadian. This is a Canadian broadcast only.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes total sense then. But I do feel though that, like, if you do want to showcase the game though in the States, maybe not necessarily an all Canadian matchup, but having, I think we've saw a lot of Leaf games down on TNT last year. Yep. I could say the same for the Oilers. Like, I think you got to have some of those games broadcasted in the US if, quote unquote, you want to grow the game. I think it's just better for the game when most Canadian teams are better or playing better and you have that inter-country rivalry.
I got to ask for the feelings from within Toronto of Ryan Reeves and the hit on Darnell Nurse. Gets the 5 games. What's the feeling like in Toronto on that hit? What do you guys think of that hit? Just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I can start on that one. Obviously a dirty hit. I think a lot of people have come out and said, like, I don't think Ryan Reeves was going into that, like, I'm going to take off Nurse's head. Unfortunately, like, you watch the video and that's kind of just what happened, right? He flies in there. And I'll be honest, like we watch all the Leaf games. Like, Reeves hasn't really laid one of those hits this year. Like, he's kind of been quiet in terms of, like, like a momentum shifter like that. And then he does that, and you're like, oh my God, like, you don't want him hitting guys like that. Like, there's a way, to change the momentum in the game, to pick up some momentum from a big hit. But, obviously we all want it to be clean. Like, it's tough to see, the way Nurse's head turned on that, the way he went down to the ice. Obviously, like, I don't think anyone condones that. I don't think Reeves condones that. Like, I think everyone kind of has a feeling around here that it was like one of those things where it's not something that Reeves meant to do. And it's unfortunate that ended up being, the case.
I think my take is pretty similar to what Jake has here. I think if you ask some Leaf fans, they were calling for a 15-game suspension of Ryan Reeves. But as I said to Jake, the way that this bottom 6, like, I know we're all happy and feeling good about the Toronto Maple Leafs right now with a couple of really big wins and the top 6 playing really well. Bobby McMahon, or he's now being coined here in Toronto as Bobby McDavid, is playing really well in that top 6. The bottom 6 has been a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. So having Reeves in or out of the lineup really doesn't make much of a difference to this hockey club. It's not like last year where fans were begging to get some other guys into the lineup. The bottom 6 is a massive, massive problem for Toronto, not just right now, but even in previous years with the playoffs. You look at teams that have major success, look up and down their roster. They have guys that can score from the first line to the fourth line and on the back end. Look at you guys here in Edmonton. When you guys were on your run last year, it was everyone contributing. Toronto Maple Leafs haven't had that. So that in itself, okay, there were some funny jokes about keeping Reeves out of the lineup, but realistically, I think the league with the 5 games, I think it matches the fact that it's a Ryan Reeves who they're trying to eliminate players like that in the game today. I do agree with Jake that, like, yeah, you do never want to see it. It is a dirty hit. You cannot disagree that it's a dirty hit. It's up in the head. And also is a vulnerable player, but at the same time, like Nurse has to put himself in a better position there. But I'm not going to victim blame and say it's on him. It's the clean hockey hit and nothing should happen. I think the suspension is just about right. I don't think it should have been more. I certainly don't think that should be the case. But there's ways around it. Like Jake said, like he definitely doesn't need to. I know it looks like there's enough time. It is a bang play, but there is 100% a way that Reeves is able to let up and not engage that hit from his shoulder to his head.
Oilers Habs tonight. I'll build you guys a EST Oiler parlay, and I'll send it to you just after the lock shop. I just realized I got to get that done, so I'll get that to you guys a little bit later. Is Oilers Habs tonight, 5:30 here in Edmonton. GCLD's Oilers Stream pregame show, 4:30 right here on EST. And as we said, that game is on Prime, so don't go to Sportsnet and go, where's the game? It's on Amazon Prime. Pat, I know busy at the start at the very least watching Bills Chiefs. And then there was the Sunday Nighter. Did either of you get to watch much of your double blue and their win over Winnipeg yesterday in the Grey Cup?
Well, I definitely had TV number one for the first little bit there on the Buffalo Bills. Again, huge victory. But yeah, I did have a chance to watch the double blue after. And I don't want to say we kind of wrote out the script, Matt, when it was just you and I, but we did say that if Arbuckle could be efficient, not turn over the ball too much, and allow to make a couple of big plays with his arms and run the ball effectively with their running backs, we knew the defense was going to come up. You also nailed it. There was going to be a couple of bonehead plays by Caleros, which that happened. This is a very good defensive team, and the old adage goes, defense wins championships. Yes, they put up 41 points, but I really feel that it was the backbone of this team, the Toronto Argos. We said if they have any chance, we weren't even talking about just to win, to like cover this, it'd have to be on the heels of their defense. This has to be the biggest or one of the biggest upsets that we've ever seen in a Grey Cup final. Like a 9-point favorite not only wins the game, but blows the team out. And the Bombers get that garbage time touchdown as well. Just an overall suffocating defensive performance. And I know the Blue Bombers are one of the best constructed teams in the CFL, one of the best franchises, but now it's 3 soul-crushing defeats in the biggest moments. Like, I don't know where this team goes. I think the Argos got to be feeling great. You win 2 Grey Cups in 3 years. You win a Grey Cup where a lot of people were down on you. You do it without quarterback number 1. I think, people here in Toronto that are big Argos fans are feeling great, not just about this year, but for the future. I can't say the same for Winnipeg. They'll be back. They'll be there. But the fact that they haven't been able to get it over the hump after being a dynasty is certainly concerning, to say the least.
Matt, where do you come out on the dynasty talk? I saw some arguments from last night saying, they've been to 5 straight Grey Cups. Like, that's good enough to be a dynasty. They've lost 3 in a row. They've lost more than they've won going to these Grey Cups. Do you consider the Blue Bombers still a dynasty because they've gone to the Grey Cup? Or is it one of those things where it's like you got to win the big one to really cement yourself as that, dynasty?
Yeah, this was, and I talked about with Huss a little bit on Thursday too. I think he agreed a little bit, but now that the loss has happened, I wonder if he'll try to defend Winnipeg a little bit more. But it was legacy defining in that if you win and you're 3 of 5, that's modern day dynasty, period. Like, straight up, you can't dispute the greatness of that. But to be 2 of 5 where you've lost 3 in a row, and you lost to Nick Arbuckle. You lost his 9.5-point favorites. Like, the last 3 years, there was their chance to cement their legacy, and they weren't able to do it in 3 straight chances. That all talk is over. I don't care if they go out next year and win. Like, to me, they have to go where Winnipeg goes from this is they're going to try to bring this team back next year because it's a home Grey Cup. It's a Grey Cup being held in Winnipeg. I could see that you try to end with this core group that have been around for 6 years, going on 7. You try to end it with the fair, in a wonderful way, bow, wrapped, tied nicely and neatly with that home Grey Cup. You win 3 of 6. You are a solid, good team for so long. That's how it's going to try to end, but it won't be a dynasty because of just that 3 straight losses. And even like when Toronto won 2 years ago, Winnipeg was the favorite in that one too, quite well. Like there wasn't a lot of people that I think were giving Toronto a big chance in that. And if it wasn't for MBT getting hurt in the fourth quarter and Chad Kelly coming in, Toronto probably doesn't win that one. So I think for this, it cements that Winnipeg was a really good team. They were a great regular season team, but they're not a dynasty. And I'm sorry, Pat, to bring this up, but I feel like they're the CFL version of the Bills. It's a 9-team league, so yeah, they got the Grey Cups, which the Bills didn't in the early 90s, but it's a 9-team league. And to me, that this is the version of the Buffalo Bills for the Canadian Football League. They're more of the choke artists in a sense because, they lose with the block kick 2 years ago. Last year, lose on us last second play. And this year, get blown out. Like, not even, they weren't in this game, really. Like, it was Toronto played well pretty much in all 3 facets of the game. And what's wild is that actually the dynasty talk now has to switch to Toronto. Because if Toronto goes out and wins a Grey Cup next year, that's 3-4. All the dynasty talk now should be on the Toronto Argonauts. So, no, the long answer there too. I think this cements that the Bombers are no longer a dynasty. They can never be defined as a dynasty. They're just a great football team. But historically, they're not going to be one of those great teams because in the end, you got to go win those championships. Fair?
I think you nailed that, man. I really do. I think if they do go out and win, then you can start having that conversation. But I totally agree. It's the championships. No offense taken, because I was thinking of that. It was running through my head. The only difference is, in 2019 and 2021, they're able to get it done and win. But they have an opportunity here now with 3 in a row. It's hard to say take away the 2 previous championships. But what if they do go on? And let's not forget, they're hosting the Grey Cup next year. So I think this team will be even more all in. I mean, anytime the Blue Bombers take the field, it's a championship or bust season. But I think they're going to be even more like, I don't know, is it you move on from Claros and you look to find someone else who can get the job done? Like, is that what you're looking at now?
I don't think they would. And then that would have to get Huss's answer on whether Winnipeg fans would even be accepting of that. But in the last 3 Grey Cups, he's thrown 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
It's crazy. I saw that yesterday.
That's not good enough. The guy doesn't have that in him. It's like that clutch gene that you need to go and killer instinct to go win. Like 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 3 straight Grey Cups combined. It's just not good enough.
And now, like when you think about it, in the last 2 years, it's been the journeyman, or it's been the guy that everyone has said like can't get the job done in the big game. Like Cody Fajardo last year, everyone was writing him off. This year, it's Nick Arbuckle, who is ready to retire this year. You get outdone by those 2 guys, and no respect to Fajardo. I mean, I think he's got a more impressive resume than Arbuckle does. But like any game of football, any iteration of football, it's like it's a quarterback's league. But in the CFL, man, like you need a guy to get it done. And if this is supposed to be the guy, and now you've had 3 chances in a row and you can't, or the last 2, like you said, 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That is the biggest yikes of the yikes. Again, like you said, he's a fan favorite there. I don't even know. Like, I don't know enough to even begin to think if that's a possibility. But from an outsider's perspective looking in, I think that is the first place, if I'm that management group, to at least have the conversation to see, okay, is there a guy that can get this done? Because
if they weren't hosting the Grey Cup next year, they'd move on. That would be my guess. I think that changes everything. The fact that it is a Winnipeg Grey Cup, they won't move on from Zach Collaros. If it wasn't, they can maybe go, we're retooling on the fly. Even if they have a little off year, they need to get that next quarterback going to try to continue this on. I do want to throw out that our Spotify analysis of looking at the Jonas Brothers did help pay off for the last song, Sucker at plus 275. It is their #1 most played song on Spotify. So the deep analysis that happens every single day on the Lock Shop from 11 to 12 right here in Edmonton, and what would that be, 1 to 2 in Toronto. And no stone left unturned here on the Lock Shop, boys.
Nope, the Joe Bro analytics came out to play last night. Nicely done, fellas. Really really good job on breaking it down on Thursday. We did a little bit of a deep dive on Friday as well, and that's why you come to the Lock Shop. Nowhere else in Canada can you find in-depth analysis on the halftime show.
Just some news from the NHL quickly. Sharks have recalled Yaroslav Askarov. Hashtag the future is teal, says the San Jose Sharks. They just tweeted that one out there. So we will see how long he's going to stay up. Obviously, the trade from the Predators this year. Before we get into the week of the National Football League, Tyson, Paul, thoughts? Pat, you nailed the win there, easy money. But thoughts on? I'm just gonna go fights in quotes to me.
Yeah, I think the chat's going to have a mental breakdown if we continue on that chat for too long. I'll just say it. It's kind of expected what we thought. I mean, I gave out the pick. I said that if it's going to go to decision, it's going to go to Tyson. I don't know if you can say it's rigged, but obviously, let's not forget, like a lot of those clips that were getting sent out of Tyson were before his health concerns. So I'll leave it at that. But again, I always say this after every one of these fights. I'm done. They bamboozled me again. Give it a couple of months when they announce that this guy's going up against someone else, and I'll be back again talking on the Lock Shop with you about ways to bet it, and I'll get completely sucked back in. I don't know how it keeps happening.
I'm officially done. I'm not falling into the trap again. I said it last time, and I fell back into the trap with Tyson. I'm done. I'm not watching these fights. There's so much going on, on the weekends in terms of sports. Like, I know it was the biggest thing going. We all got bamboozled. Like, it was insane that we all sat there and had to watch possibly one of the worst fights like I've ever seen it. They danced around the ring for 8 rounds, 2-minute rounds. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. And we all fell for it as if there was going to be something, crazy that happens. I won't do it again. I refuse. I'll watch like a friggin' late night college basketball game that means nothing instead. I can't do it anymore.
I will say this. 2 things. One, Netflix. Obviously, that was an absolute nightmare. They seemed like they were able to figure things out by the end of things. The other couple things here, Serrano and Taylor, that fight was awesome.
Great fight.
Like, if they didn't have that fight, I think this would have been a total disaster. That was an awesome fight. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a spectacle. The other part about that, it was because it was on Netflix. Like, you already got your Netflix subscription. Like, I don't think anyone's signing up for Netflix to go out and watch that. And if you are, I am so sorry. But I think most people already have the Netflix and they're flipping it on, whether they have friends over, you're just by yourself watching it, whatever it may be. So I think that obviously is a saving grace. I think it's also a big wake-up call that all these technical difficulties happen. Well, let's not forget, we've got some NFL games coming up. We got 2 of them.
Christmas Day.
Yeah. And I do not ruin my Christmas Netflix by having that buffer come up when I'm trying to watch my football after I've eaten 2 pounds of turkey, open up all my presents, and I can't watch my football. You're going to have a very angry elf on your hands in Pat Gregoire. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I will say, though, like, good palate cleanser, the next night, UFC 309, that was an awesome card. John Jones is one of the coolest knockouts I think I've ever seen in my life. That spinning back kick. Really good card at 309. And I think that just kind of goes to show you where we are at combat sports. Like, boxing is so in trouble. So unbelievably in trouble if the Paul brothers are your biggest draw in the game and you go on the very next day, you flip on UFC and it's just, I know there was a couple of duds on that main card, but overall, I thought it was a really good main card. The 2 main events were fantastic. Boxing has to do something here. I don't know what it is, but they got to figure out a way to fix this.
Well, you got Tyson Usyk later. December 21st is what I looked at for the rematch of that one. The one thing, though, I will say, I'm with Jake. I'm retired from Paul fights. Like, it's Paul fights. I watched Logan Paul. I watched now Jake Paul. I'm done. I said on the Hangout, I'm not even going to talk about it if the next one happens. If everyone else wants to talk about it, I'll sit there quietly. I'm retired from that one. I can't. And maybe in the end I will get sucked in. I'm going to do my best to not, because I just can't get sucked in like that anymore. But I will say the one thing that is fascinating though is that it's boxing that still can get everyone to watch. It's not MMA. Like UFC can't get that casual, like where everyone. This was supposed to be like I'm not a big UFC guy, but this is supposed to be a big fight that happened this last Saturday. But it's the fight of the weekend. We were all talking about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. For whatever reason, boxing still is romantic to so many people that we fall into the trap of the spectacle of boxing. And they're the one sport that could still, if they could find the right people that aren't the Paul brothers, you could still get people to settle in on a Friday or Saturday night to watch your fight, and everyone knows what you're talking about. I was at a restaurant before I went to go watch the fight. I had like some 22-year-old girl asking like me and my buddy, hey, what are you guys going to do? And it was just, I literally just said, we're going to go watch the fight. And she knew exactly which fight I was talking about there. And for whatever reason, boxing still has that. They just got to find the right people to market around that so that when we go watch it, people actually are entertained by what they're watching and not Paul versus Tyson that we saw this weekend. Still angry that watched that one and wasted my time. Let's get to the NFL. Let's start with the big game. It is the Chiefs. It is the Bills. Pat, does this give you a lot of confidence for the Bills going, through the rest of the season into the playoffs? Like, they needed this game way more than the Chiefs needed this game.
1,000%. 1,000%. This was much bigger for Buffalo. I said it before, though, on Friday. I think I maybe even mentioned it to you, Matt, when you were on with us. This wasn't going to completely change the outlook that I have on the Buffalo Bills. I desperately wanted this victory because when you looked at the two other measuring stick games that they had this season, they get their doors blown off by the Ravens and then a really poor offensive performance where they end up being able to get back in the game, but a couple of coaching blunders ends up costing them a game against the Texans, losing by a field goal. So they did. I felt like, yes, they need this. You almost, if they had split one of those and maybe their record's not as crystal clear as it was, like maybe I'd be thinking like, you know what, it's not the end of the world. Maybe you want to lose to the Chiefs because time and time again, the Buffalo Bills are able to take care of the Chiefs in the regular season, but here comes the playoffs and they're not able to get it done. One thing that Jake and I were talking about before we got on in the green room here is the fact that Sean McDermott did not allow Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and this Chiefs team to win the game. We've seen so many times in the past, the 13-second game, where Josh Allen has a near perfect game, and that wasn't the case yesterday. But Josh Allen has a great game. The offense looks great. They do everything they can, and they lose with their star player, their star quarterback, sitting on the bench, watching, waiting. They weren't going to allow the Chiefs to win or tie the game and allow this game to be decided by a coin flip. They had the stones to make that call, and not only do they get the first down on fourth down, but Josh Allen runs it in. This certainly, yes, makes me feel a lot better about the Buffalo Bills. Makes me feel like this team is different than teams in the past, but I'm going to still have caution. The caption, shout out to their social media team. They said, just another W. That's how you have to take it. It's a great win against a great team, a team that you've had some instant classics, but of course, there is still a lot of football left. They're in the meat of their schedule right now. And at the end of the day, they absolutely have to do the same thing in the playoffs. It just has to happen. It has to happen. And yesterday was great. Feels awesome. I'm feeling a lot better about this group, feeling better about myself. Got my hat on and was hoping I was going to be able to do a little bit of grave dancing on Huss. But hey, that will have to wait till later in the week. But taking it with a grain of salt and hoping that they can still do the same thing in the playoffs.
Jake, does this change anything with the Chiefs? Like, I know you had the Chiefs, so I take the L this weekend, but change anything for you? Or is it just they were finally due for a loss?
No, I don't think it changes anything with the Chiefs. They were kind of skating by there. I mean, you think about that Broncos game, it's in division, they went on a block kick. Like, they probably needed a game like this where, At no point in that game did I think the Chiefs deserved to win, if I'm being honest with you. I thought the Bills played a better game, and the play calling down the stretch was exactly what the Bills needed to go out and take the win, not just try to squeak by. Like, you deserve to win the football game, and you go take care of business. That Josh Allen run, incredible. I'm obviously not a Bills guy. Everyone knows that, but that run is like, you're a Bills fan, like, that's got you jacked up all week long. I also think there's a scenario where if the Bills didn't end up winning that game, like, you could have had a spin zone, like, we're going to get another chance with the Chiefs, like, especially if they would have lost it tight. But to go out and win that's a big confidence booster for a team that, is going to get San Francisco next week. I believe Detroit's still on the schedule for the Bills. So a couple more teams, not that San Fran's, they're a whole totally separate story, but, a couple more games where it's like, okay, where are we stacking up against the rest of the league? You played the Ravens, you played the Texans, you now played the Chiefs. You're going to get to play the Lions, who I think we can all agree still the best team in the NFC. And, you're going to get a couple more chances at that. You're going to have a couple cupcakes down the stretch, and you can get ready for the playoffs. I mean, I think the Bills are in as good a spot as any team right now to make a run at this thing. But at the end of the day, more than likely, you got to go through Mahomes one more time. So that's probably the focus for the Bills coming up. But yeah, just win the games you're supposed to. And, you might end up in a scenario here where you end up with a home championship game. You're going to have to see what happens with the Chiefs. But now they have that one loss in the schedule. You only have 2 losses if you're the Bills. You hope the Chiefs pick up one more. You have the head-to-head against them. AFC Championship might be played through Buffalo this year.
I will say the Chiefs, though, they didn't have their secret weapon, and Taylor Swift, I don't believe, was at the game. So
that's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer.
It stunned me because she was right in Toronto. No show until I think Thursday she's back on in Toronto, and she didn't make the trip down to Buffalo. So maybe the Chiefs are just holding off until playoff time to bring Taylor Swift out.
Or it's trouble in paradise. Maybe something's going on. Taylor's done her tour. The Eras tour is done. She's gonna have to write music somehow. She needs a breakup. She needs it. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying.
Well, it says I don't think she's probably been as close to a Chiefs game in a long time throughout this whole tour, and she didn't show up. She came from Tokyo right to that Super Bowl last year.
Yeah,
like, overnight flight, all of that. Maybe there's something there. You heard it here first, TMZ on the Lock Shop. We've got this covered. We'll be breaking this down further as we move forward. With the Bills, it is a wild. Oh, go ahead.
No, just looking at the Chiefs' schedule here. If you are a Bills fan, if you're kind of looking at where they can pick up another loss, they do have the Chargers. That'll be in Kansas City. Chargers have played pretty good football. Yeah, Sunday nighter. They got Houston also in Kansas City. That's late in the season. And they also have to go to Pittsburgh. Guess what? Not an easy place to win football games. We saw that this weekend. I don't know if we want to get to that next, Maddie, since it is your Ravens.
I think so.
We'll get there. But I was just looking because that's a short week for both those teams both those teams too. The Chiefs are coming off of the Texans. They're home to the Texans on the 21st. They're in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. As for the Steelers, they get the Ravens on the 21st in Baltimore. Then they're home to the Chiefs. So both those, it's not even like you're coming in off of like an easy game beforehand.
Right.
That top teams in the AFC meeting that week prior before those two teams meet. Not a fun game as a Baltimore Ravens fan. A traditional Ravens-Steelers game where there is no offense. It comes down to the defenses. Lamar Jackson can't really get much going. A 2-point conversion that makes no sense what happened there. But to me, the biggest story of that game is, have we watched the greatest kicker of all time fall off a cliff? Justin Tucker has 6 missed kicks this season. 2 of them yesterday. The difference that makes if he just makes one of those kicks, I think the majority of his missed kicks have been left as well. John Harbaugh said after the game that, Justin Tucker, he called him out finally and went, he's got to make his kicks. That's what he's employed to do. This was a rough one, and I think it was the Ravens as the favorites going in when all was said and done. What did you guys make of Ravens-Steelers?
It was an awesome game. I said it on Friday, said it to you on Thursday. The outside of the quote-unquote game of the week, this was the one that I was most excited to watch. And maybe not the most offensively exciting game, but anytime these two teams meet, it's always fireworks, and it didn't disappoint. You're totally right about Tucker, but I think water is finding its level. At the start of this year, we were talking about, wow, how good are these kickers right now? They're nailing all these. Not only are they a lot of kickers staying perfect right now, but they're nailing these long bombs in clutch moments. Now it seems like no one can really make a clutch kick. No one can make an easy kick at this point. And when Tucker's missing it, like, he is the greatest kicker of all time. I don't think there's really much argument to be said there. Something is wrong there. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know if it's just father time catching up, but that is a growing concern. As a Ravens fan, as you know, that's one thing you could trust. You could always trust for Tucker to be able to close out a game, tie up a game, whatever it is, get that clutch field goal. Now it just changes the complete dynamic of your play calling, going for it on fourth. The way that you're going to strategize for these late games. If you can't trust your kicker, you're calling the game completely different. I don't care what you say. Even if you do say you do trust the kicker, it's going to be creeping in the back of your mind. So that's a huge, huge cause for concern. I talked about how I thought the Steelers, I bet them to make the playoffs. I thought, like, this is a team that, really could shock some people. Their defense is unbelievable. Their offense does enough to win games. But I did still say, like, I don't think they're a contender. I don't think they can get it done. I think I might be putting this Steelers team into a very small, exclusive group of teams that I actually think could win a Super Bowl. It's crazy to say, but I think they're there. I think they're close. They're on the cusp of being in that top echelon after watching what they did to the Ravens. But I will say this quickly, Matt. You know the Ravens better than anyone, because you basically, when I said I was going to take the Browns, you said you totally could see that coming. And then you and I talked about how much Lamar Jackson has struggled against the Steelers, and boy, that came right to fruition.
Well, another 3-point game. These teams play tight football games, comes down right till the end. They'll play on the 21st. Likely the Ravens will win that game because they'll split these. They split these series as well. It'll be another 3-point game. Don't take anyone to take anything by a greater margin. It's going to be a game that's not high scoring yet again, because that's what the Ravens and Steelers do. And that's what they've done my entire life watching the games. You don't see blowouts generally between these two teams. You don't see high offensive productions. And the Ravens will find ways to adjust in advance of that one in their own way. Derrick Henry will get going a little bit more. They won't have turnovers. The biggest concern for the Ravens right now, I think, beyond the kicking, is penalties. They are by far the most penalized team in the league. Both number of penalties and yards. They're just off with that, very undisciplined. If they have any hope of actually being a team that could maybe come out of the AFC and win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to clean that up. Otherwise, they're going to have an early exit come January should they make the playoffs. They've got a little bit of a run here, which is going to be interesting. They've got the Chargers. It's the Battle of the Harbaughs next Monday. They got the Eagles. They got a bye. They got the Giants. They got the Steelers. They got the Texans. And they got the Browns. So a mixed schedule for the Baltimore Ravens the rest of the way. Anything else stand out to you guys that you want to get to this weekend? Jake, did you want to get to Packers, Bears?
Yeah, I have a dumb theory about kickers, and I know it doesn't make any sense, but I do think they sync up. Like, when it's a bad week for kickers, it's a bad week for all kickers. You watched Tucker yesterday miss a couple kicks. McPherson missed. I'm just annoyed because I had the Bengals last night. And, McPherson misses 2 kicks that he absolutely should make, and he was not close on either one. Even the extra point before that, he just made over the left crossbar, and I knew it was going to be a struggle down the stretch. He sucked last week, too. Then the Browns. I had the Browns yesterday. Hopkins missed a 27-yarder. Like, guys, listen. I know you shouldn't bash kickers. I know it's not an easy job. I can make a 27-yarder. I can guarantee I'd make a 27-yarder.
Somebody just did it on College Game Day. Or 30-yarder, whatever it was.
That kid made a 33-yarder, and it was pure. Like, he kicked that so well.
Anyway, down the middle.
I just think there's something about when kickers are missing, it's not just one guy. The one thing I will say about Tucker, you think about Vinatieri down the stretch, like his last few years with the Colts weren't pretty. He missed a lot of kicks. I think it kind of comes for everyone. Hopefully Tucker can kind of get it sorted out. You just don't want this to be a problem come playoff time, Matty. If you're sitting there and you can't trust Justin Tucker to go out there and make a big kick, that's gonna breed trouble for the Baltimore Ravens, who have had their own problems in the playoffs over the last few years. So we'll have to see what's going forward. I'm not too worried about the Ravens now that the Bengals have kind of fallen off. I think they're out of the race. I think the AFC is kind of coming to form here, and which teams are going to kind of make the run at the playoffs and which teams are kind of going to be out of it. So, we can talk about Bears, Packers. It's classic Chicago Bears, right? I mean, no matter what you do, you will not beat the Packers. Matt LaFleur has never lost to the Bears in his career as the Packers head coach. It's unfortunate. I had the Packers -5.5. They really had no chance to ever cover the spread. I thought the Bears deserved to win the football game the way they had driven the ball down the field on several different times. But when it comes down to it, Santos takes the kick. Another guy takes a kick, and it gets blocked. And, it's same old story for the Bears. I think overall it's probably better long-term for the Bears. You got to get rid of Matt Eberflus. Probably should be fired mid-season, although the Bears don't fire anyone mid-season. So, you might have to wait to the end of the year for that. Pick up some wins, get a top 15 draft pick, and, continue to work on Caleb Williams in a new system, hopefully next year with a new head coach.
How great is it seeing the Jets lose again?
The best.
Like, I think we can all just take joy in the fact that the Jets they go lose to the Colts, drop to 3-7 on the year. Like the Aaron Rodgers experiment, complete bust.
It's amazing. It's, obviously they're in the Bills division, and I've went on a couple of rants now about this. But like everyone and their dog were picking the Jets to win this division. And the Super Bowl window is closed for the Buffalo Bills. Look how good this division is. You got the Dolphins and you've got the Jets. The Patriots, write them off. But this is not going to be easy for the Buffalo Bills. What are we talking about here? How did anyone think that this Jets team was a Super Bowl contender? Did I think they were going to be this bad? Absolutely not, though. It is a dumpster fire. It is trashy reality TV. It's gross. You probably shouldn't be watching, but you can't stop watching because it is so entertaining. They just find different ways to lose and embarrass themselves. This has been a complete, utter failure, and I couldn't love it more, Matt. I could not love it more.
Where's Aaron Rodgers going to go this offseason? Like, which retreat are we going to hear about? And then, he's going to decide on his future, and then he's going to go on Pat McAfee, and he's going to make his decision. He's off to this one city. It's the drama that's going to come it's a car crash in itself to watch, but I'm loving the fact that we get to go watch that because of a disastrous tenure with the New York Jets.
Maddie, it makes no sense, but if history tells us anything, he's going to the Vikings, and he'll have a little resurgence just like Favre did, and it'll all pan out that
NFC
way.
Championship game.
Because they do have J.J. McCarthy. Darnold's been pretty good, and the Vikings actually, I think, are a team that has been playing good football, deserves to be in a playoff spot. I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers if I'm the Vikings. The way this season's gone, he's just not his old self. It might be time to hang him up. I don't think anyone would blame him if he said, you know what, I'm done with football. I'm just going to go live out in, with no internet and do my weekly hit on the McAfee show.
How about this, guys? Steve Pizzolo tweeted this out. I don't know if you guys saw this, but winning percentage as the Jets starting quarterback. Zach Wilson, 0.36.
For a second, I think you're back. Our internet kind of went away for a little bit, but I think everything's good. You were just going with the Zach Wilson 0.364%, and then it paused.
Did Aaron Rodgers somehow hack the system here? And that was unbelievable. Zach Wilson 0.364. Sam Darnold 0.342. Aaron Rodgers 0.273. That is ugly. That is gross. The fact that Aaron Rodgers has been significantly worse than Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold in their Jets tenure is just pure cinema to me.
Before we get to the Monday Nighter here, Texans, Cowboys, do just one more game from yesterday. Your thoughts? The Falcons lose to the Broncos 38-6. Is this the Broncos? It should have really beat the Chiefs last week after getting destroyed against the Ravens the week prior. You got the Falcons who lose to the Saints last week and then get destroyed by the Broncos. Do you guys read anything into this for either the Broncos or the Falcons?
I think we need to start respecting the Broncos. I mean, I don't think it's been pretty all season for them, but to have a rookie quarterback, you're 6-5. Bo Nix is, I'd say, more than serviceable. That defense has been really solid. Think back to a year ago when it was Russell Wilson and people are like, Sean Payton doesn't have it anymore. And I don't know about this Broncos team. They bring in Bo Nix and they're like, what are they doing? And, sure enough, you're above 500, 11 games into the season. I'm looking at their schedule, pretty favorable down the stretch here. Vegas, the Browns, you get the bye. Then you go versus Indianapolis. You'll have to go to the Chargers. You're going to Cincinnati. They might be out of it by then. And then you got Kansas City at home to finish the season. But you can win your next three. You're 9-5 as the Broncos. Can you get in at 9-8? I think possibly, with the way the AFC is starting to play out. So, if you're the Broncos, you just got to keep rolling. I saw Bronco Nick was in the chat after I mentioned the Chiefs' schedule down the stretch. Going to Mile High is not going to be easy for the Chiefs at the end of the season, especially if that game matters. So I totally agree, especially in a revenge spot where they probably think they deserve that first game against the Chiefs. They'll get their shot again at the end of the season.
Should Sean Payton be in the conversation for Coach of the Year? Last year they were losing by 1 billion points to the Dolphins. I know they had that turnaround in the second half, but they were the laughingstock of the NFL a year ago. They end up turning things around, are able to fix things. I think he's got to be in the conversation, man. That defense is mean. I don't know if I'm a true believer yet. There's a lot of scar tissue from his college days just killing me with boneheaded pick sixes or turnovers deep in his, I was a perennial Bo Nix hater because he would cost me a lot of money when he was playing at Auburn. It's a little bit better when he got to Oregon. But Jake, you say serviceable. I think he's better than serviceable. I think he's doing a real great job. He's confident. He's really fixed his turnover problems that he had at the start of the year. When you have a quarterback that can make the big throw, doesn't turn over the ball, and is supported by a defensive unit that is as good as the Broncos, that's a recipe for success. And I think Peyton's done a really good job. Say what you will about the guy. I think he's got to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year.
Well, guys, here's the other thing about Bo Nix. And we've already locked in Jaden Daniels, Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's over. Guess what, guys? It ain't over. You look at their yards. Jaden Daniels, 2,338 yards. Bo Nix, 2,275 yards. I think total TDs, Nix is leading over Jaden Daniels. I think he has a few more interceptions. He has 6 interceptions to his 3. Sorry, I'm trying to look at it on my screen here. This guy is absolutely in the race for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think likely those odds will be back up tomorrow, so we'll have to keep our eye on what that looks like. But Jaden Daniels has been perennial favorite for weeks now, Pat, if I'm correct. And, all of a sudden, we're going to have to see where Bo Nix stands, but he is very much in the race for Offensive Rookie of the Year, especially if these teams end up with similar records down the stretch, both make the playoffs. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on here over the next, 6 or 7 weeks.
Monday Nighter tonight, Texans, Cowboys. Texans 7-point favorites on the money line. They're minus 333. Cowboys plus 300. Cooper Rush getting the start for the Cowboys. What are you guys looking at? What are your guys' plays? I know Jake's has his theory about kickers, and when it's bad for a weekend, it's bad. Does that impact the 3.5 field goals for tonight with primetime Patty?
Dude, I've bet over 3.5 field goals when it's like a monsoon outside. Like the game shouldn't even been played, and I bet it. Jake can stand for it. It is a principle, so I will be playing it 100%. Everyone already knows, I am also on the Texans here. It was one of my best bets, and I need it desperately because I'm 0-3 on my best bets. But I think that this is a game where CJ Stroud can kind of get some of his swagger back. The splits between him with and without Nico Collins is remarkable. I think he looked a lot better last week. In 5 games with Collins in the lineup, he's averaging 277 pass yards with 7 touchdowns. In the 5 games without him, he's averaged for 197.7 yards with 5 passing touchdowns. So I think I'm going to go over his touchdowns thrown, but also his passing yards. And then I'm going to go with Nico Collins. I think it's at 72, 71. I can't remember the last time I looked.
73 now.
Okay,
It moved up
it's
2
up.
yards since this morning.
It's up, but like he's averaging over 113 yards per game when he's healthy. He's had at least 78 in all 5 of his games that he's played so far this year. I get it. You want to be concerning getting him back into the things here, but I mean, I just spread it out perfectly for you. Like Stroud leaned so heavily on him, and I think they're going to be doing it the same against the Cowboys team that is an absolute mess.
Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it here. I agree with Patty. I think Collins was kind of the first name that came to mind. I feel like he could have played last week, and they just kept him out one more week to get him back to as close to 100% as possible. So I think, if you're betting him tonight, you should feel comfortable knowing that, he's in good condition. We talked about the field goals. We're talking about 2 of some of the best kickers in the league, Brandon Aubrey and Kaimi Fairbairn. Like, I think I'd have no problem taking the field goals tonight. Another one I like, if you go over to the game props, longest field goal over under 47.5 yards. You can get the over 47.5 at minus 120. This is a bet I like. If primetime Aubrey, I really like. I think this guy is automatic from 50 yards. My only concern is Cooper Rush going to be able to move the football down the field to get Aubrey within range to make a couple 50-yarders. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I do like the field goals tonight. I like that longest field goal number. I'll probably take that on the over because I think both those guys are capable of making a 50-plus, and we only need a 48-plus to get there. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. Like Pat mentioned, he's on the Texans. I do have the Cowboys in my best bets, but I am not. I'm not thrilled about it. Like it might. I don't know. I think I'm going to take it, but I don't want to get flack for it if I'm on the show tomorrow after they get blown out. Like I'll just like wave the white flag. Like I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry I was ever on the Cowboys at this point in the season with how bad they have looked, especially at home. Like they haven't won a game at home. I think I saw a statistic. Jake Paul has more wins at AT&T Stadium than the Cowboys do this season.
I saw that. Hey Jake, the one thing they got going for them though, it is a night game.
There's no sun.
Sun is not.
No
there's
sun.
no sun.
There was curtains for Jake Paul fight though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they can put the curtains up for that, but not for their QB.
Not for your star quarterback, your star receiver to try to win football games, but for a fight that ended up being just a embarrassment of a fight. Yeah, we'll get that up for there.
Did you guys also see the next day their Monday or Tuesday morning press availability? They actually had like a screen shield like in their media room that was blocking the sun, and reporters were going like, what are we doing here? This has to be a troll job. They're blocking out the sun on the podium, but they're not blocking out the sun in their freaking stadium where they cannot win a football game right now.
I hope Jerry Jones never changes. I hope he just absolutely never changes. Tomorrow on the Lock Shop, the plan is Dusty won't be doing the morning show. The plan is that for those listening on Edmonton Sports Talk right now, it will be Fraser, it will be Lieutenant Eric in the mornings, but Dusty will do the Lock Shop and 2 guys and a goalie tomorrow. The fingers crossed. I'm not getting there just yet, but the hopeful triumphant return of Dustin Nielson to Edmonton Sports Talk. And Wednesday, same thing. He'll do Lock Shop with us. He will do the oil stream. And if all goes well, he'll be full-time back on EST on Thursday. We'll see how that fully goes. I know he was still struggling a bit over this past weekend. But that is the plan right now. So for you boys, just right now, the plan is Huss and Dusty tomorrow. So we'll see if that goes. And then... they could talk a little more Grey Cup, and Huss could hopefully heal. The wounds will have healed a little bit from this past weekend because it was rather rough. But boys, thanks for everything over the last few weeks, and great show today. This is we'll have a lot of hockey tonight. I'll get you guys an EST parlay for Oilers game. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, last thing I want to say, I think someone mentioned it in the chat. I believe the next EST poker tournament will be next Tuesday, Pat.
Okay,
it is.
Just want to be for sure. So next Tuesday, the 26th, will be the next EST poker tournament. I guess it's probably live. I'm guessing you could sign up right now if you wanted to. But we'll make sure. Yeah, so it's live. You can sign up right now if you wanted to. I'm happy to hear Dusty's back. Hopefully he's full health by then. We can get him back on stream because we love to have him eating some double stuff Oreos this time on stream. The other thing is, please head to our promotions page. Check out the Best on Bets Boston. We are giving away a chance to win tickets to the championship game for the Four Nations Cup in February. It's happening through the rest of this month and into December as well. You accumulate tickets. I think the leaderboard updates weekly. So if you're betting on the NHL, make sure you're opting into that campaign. Collect some tickets, and who knows, you might be off to Boston February 20th, and hopefully we can all be rooting on Team Canada in the finals of that down in Boston.
Pat, Jake, great stuff today. To everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Lock Shop. Oil Stream coming up next with Tommy and Gager. Enjoy the sports later tonight and keep it locked to Coolbet for everything that we've talked about, everything Jake just said as well. An EST Oiler Parlay will be posted at some point today as well. On behalf of Pat, Jake, I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning in to the Lock Shop on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Oil Stream coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.